Okay guys, this is just a quick tutorial on mixing pigments. I've had a few questions about that, so I thought I'd just knock this up quickly. Before we start, when you do this, you should be wearing a respirator. This stuff can get into your lungs and it's quite nasty, and it's very, very fine powder, so you'd want to be wearing the appropriate respirator before you do this. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to be ultra careful with it while I mix up one of these. So before I start, just a quick acknowledgement of the Shelley art technique, which is what I've sort of borrowed this from. These guys are fantastic. So if you're into blooms, and if you're into swipes and that sort of cellular art, even though the recipes are out there now, I think the course and the community with that is well worth the investment. It certainly changed the way I painted because that was the type of painting I was into. So full acknowledgement to Shelley and her team. And I guess I'll get started, and I'll start off with just introducing a few products first. And I'll start with what you're going to need to do this properly. And we'll start with the pigments. So you'll hear a lot of pigments, and these are a few examples. That's a Pearlex by Jacquard pigment. This is my favorite. This is This Little Piggy pigment, which is specifically designed for fluid art. It's just a fantastic product. And this is a paper mill from Riot Art and Craft. And if you just have a look inside for a second, you can just see that's a very bright and fine powder. Now you want a really fine powder. Anything that's rough, you're going to end up having to smash. So I stick with the stuff that's very fine. And usually in these three brands, they're all good. Just be careful of some of the reds. So other things that you'll need a dispersant. So that's a pigment mixing fluid from Paper Mill, which is available from Riot Art and Craft. And in the absence of that, but tends to be a little bit more expensive, is a Yo Sonia gloss varnish, which is quite often used. You can use what they call retarders and stuff, but they're usually the two products I use the most. You need to be careful with pigments. You can't mix them straight with Floetrol. Floetrol is a paint extender, and it doesn't have what they call binders in it. Now, acrylic paint comes with binders, and basically what you're doing is adding a coloration, and you need that binder for the pigments to move properly. If you put it into a clear fluid like Floetrol, all it will do is bleed. And even if you use Floetrol and some of your painting with pigments, it will tend to bleed a bit, but it's about learning how to manage and control that, and using other paints as to hold them up and to make them react normally like a tube paint. The other thing you're going to need is an untinted or transparent house paint. This is the one recommended. It's a neutral interior doors and trim by Taubman's Easy Coat. It'll look milky, but it actually dries translucent. You don't want anything with white. White will make it pastel, and it will just destroy the look you're after. So let's get started. I'm just going to use a little plastic shot glass and a pop stick. I wish I had a bit better flat surface. All I'm going to do, careful not to breathe this in, is grab a heap on the end of the popsicle, roughly half a teaspoon, place it into the cup. Now I'm just going to close that so I don't breathe any of it in. Cover that with the dispersant, and you can use either the Yo Sonia gloss varnish or this paper mill mixing fluid. Just give that a real good stir and make sure you pick up all the pigment. And thoroughly wet it. Now a lot of people always ask, why do you do this first when you're just going to add the rest and have to stir anyway? And the reason being is it gets all of the pigment wet and it allows it to stir better, and you don't end up with any clumps or lumps that will look like colourful sand or really gritty on your painting. You want that nice metallic pearlescent shine. Just have a look in there. You can see it's nice and stirred, beautiful colour. So we'll just add some of our translucent paint, just giving that a bit of a stir to make it a little bit more fluid and less lumpy. Just putting some of that into the shot glass. And I'm filling that to roughly 3/4 full. And as you can see, it's quite a milky consistency. But now it's just about the stir. So give it a really, really good stir. Make sure you scrape all the edges and the bottom. Stirring, stirring, stirring. This can take a little bit. And what you're looking for is a nice rich colour. If you see any milkiness, keep going a little bit, because the stir is the most important part of this. You get this wrong, you can recover it by more stirring at the end, but you want to get it good at the start, otherwise it'll keep going milky and be an off colour when you get to the final product. And you can usually see when it's ready, because you'll get this nice rich shiny colour as you stir it, and it'll be a nice smooth colour, even though it won't be the original colour of your pigment. And that looks just about ready. Just a little bit more, and as you can see, that nice rich colour sitting there in there now. If I was going to use this in a cup or in a split cup, I'd probably add this to a commercial pouring medium such as Liquitex, or I'd try and add the smallest amount of Floetrol just to make it a bit thinner. But seeing I'm going to be using this for bloom and swipe technique, I want it to be that little bit thicker, and as you can see, it flows nicely off the popsicle stick. But I always like to top mine off with a little bit of gloss varnish. I wouldn't do this if I was straight pouring or stuff, but for blooms and swipes this seems to work better. And just stir that thoroughly in. That will help give your pigments that extra shine, but you want to make sure you stir this thoroughly in. This varnish takes a little bit of stirring. And there you have it, that nice rich purple colour, which is beautiful. Now that's ready to just go into a container and be stored. Now I usually wait a day or two before using it, because This does get air bubbles from all the stirring, and you just want them to settle down. The other thing with this is this may go milky while it's sitting in a cup waiting for you to use it. Don't be concerned about that. That's very easily solved with a bit of a thorough stir before you actually use it. I hope this helps, and I hope you enjoyed the video.